So every social encounter that you're going to experience, we can walk through it together.
Mhm.
We can go through exactly how your child, the teen, the adult will get through it. That's what therapy is. It's working through these challenges to become a more confident social verbal communicator, to reach their capacity.
Yeah.
It's so very important.
Mhm.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you said a lot of what I was thinking. I think it's just so important to really think about what your next few weeks look like and all the opportunities that you can have to create these action plans. I think many times families, when we first talk about it, it sounds like, oh wow, this is going to take a lot of time. This is going to be something that, we're going to have to like really sit down for 30 minutes and go over. And it takes some time for families to kind of buy into kind of this idea of like making an action plan. And I have families that will talk about it and then they'll come back and they'll be like, I'm sorry, Dr. Jenna, we didn't have time to do it. And I'll say, okay, well, let's like slow down. Let's think about when we can develop these action plans. And this should really become part of your everyday. For example, if you're just in the car, these could be questions that we can ask each other, right? If we're driving, and let's say we're heading to the store, we can ask, who might be at this store? What questions might they ask? So it doesn't have to be just for an event. It could also just be for like going to the store, going to a restaurant. A restaurant's a great place to practice action plans because there's so many predictable questions someone could ask, right? A waiter could ask you, what do you want to drink? What do you want to eat? Do you want any sides? Do you want any dessert? Do you want anything else? There's so many questions. And we can also ask a lot of different initiation questions. Like, can I have an extra straw? Can I have a to-go bag? Can we have the check? Where if we go to the hostess, we're three people, and kind of prepare for that. So I guess what I'm trying to emphasize is this should become kind of an everyday thing that we think about, and it should almost just become part of our routine. And once it becomes part of our routine, it's amazing how much like effortless, these types of action plans become because I think yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing up great points that this is about changing behaviors. This is about parents unlearning their enabling or their high expectation ways because it wasn't working for you.
Mhm.
So if you're coming to us for help, we're going to respect your life and what you have time to do, and we're going to do as much as we can in treatment to help prepare. So, as you said, in that session, we may develop action plans for the upcoming week. One of the things, or whatever strategy working on, this podcast is about action plans, but we may spend that session reviewing whatever strategy we're doing to help prepare you between now and the next time. What's coming up this week? Let's go through it. Let's walk through it so we're successful. Talking about what strategies and interventions you're going to use, talking about the parents' role in this. But one of the things that is really important, and we talk about this in previous podcasts, is structure, consistency, routine, and predictability. It all is interlinked, right? That all creates control. The more structured, the more predictable, the more routine. It really does create a calmness in individuals, knowing what, when, and where. So their life being that way through schedules, a big family calendar, putting on when the doctor's appointment is, when we're getting our hair cut, when we're going to the birthday party, when we're going to the family barbecue, when we're going shopping. And having that where the child or the teen is actively involved in that, where they're putting it on there, they're checking it off, we did it, is really important because that's going to help every member of the family. Because the last thing we want is, hey, it's Saturday, come on, we have a doctor's appointment. What? What? And the child had no idea. Let me tell you, that is a recipe for disaster. But if
Mhm.
they can see in advance where they're going, that's helpful. Sometimes I've said, Dr. Jenna, to some families is pick a day of the week that's not as busy, that you can kind of review the upcoming week in an upbeat way. Rather than you need to and you should do this, let's talk about how we even talk to our kids about it, right?
Mhm.
And calm, meeting them where they're at, the goals we're working on, the games we're going to play, the points we're going to get for younger kids, what we're going to be working towards, and in a way that makes them feel comfortable, safe, and supported rather than attacked and criticized. We have to be very careful because that you need to and you should language has to be eradicated from parents because that pushes the child against a wall and does not welcome that
Yeah.
kind of feeling of support and acceptance. It actually pushes them away. So I talk about schedules because I might say, what is that day? And then I'll have a family. This happened just the other day where we picked Sunday. Sunday was a really laid back day for families. So they said Sunday around 4. So it seems like we're always home. It's before dinner, after they've kind of done things for the day. And they pick 4. They're kind of hanging out and they talk about the week's activities, what's coming up, what opportunities are there to play our games. Now, some kids need less, some individuals need less preparation. The more you prepare them, the more anxious they get. That's really a result of the dynamics that we have to help families with
Mhm.
because the child feels very attacked. Maybe they are used to a way of high expectation,
Right.
so that's going to be a work in progress. But for the majority that we're working with, knowing in advance what's happening, just even talking about it is really helpful. So the knowing which day of the week and recording it. And then I often have them send me updates. So we have an update link and I'll say, hey, send me weekly updates. If they're not in the weekly psychotherapy program, or the biweekly psychotherapy program because I only do the monthly SCAT program. So I will have them send me weekly updates, sometimes as much as they want, frankly, because I want to know what they're doing and it's making them accountable more to me. And that helps a lot of kids, a lot of individuals versus the parents telling them to do it. So, hey guys, what day of the week is good for you to send me an update?
Mhm.
Maybe we need to put it on our calendar, send Dr. E an update.
Yeah.
And so some kids will send their drawings, their bridges that they filled out, and it really lends itself to continuity between sessions, but it also is a way working together as a team. And
Yeah.
so you can see, listeners, how all of this just works together.
Yeah. And I also want to add to, you mentioned like the calendar and kind of this shows you all the things that we have coming up. And I think that's really important because one, you could start to see like the pockets of time when you're more free. Like let's say Tuesday we have soccer practice, Thursday we're going to see friends, Friday we have a dentist appointment, Saturday we have another birthday party, and then Sunday we're free. That shows us, oh, Sunday could be a day when we can kind of sit down and do that, but it also shows you all the preparation that we can do for all of those events, right? So, like Monday night could be when we write down a list of questions people could ask us for soccer practice, right? Or like Wednesday could be when we make an action plan for the next day that we're seeing some of our family friends. But also, the thing that's important to note too is the more that we do action plans, the more that we start to see that they overlap a lot. And so that's why they really shouldn't take that much time. It should just
Right.
become second nature. And, like, for example, yes, there's nuanced questions that someone could ask you specifically at a birthday party compared to going to your camp, but some of them overlap, right? I mean, especially like based on the time of year, once it hits July or August, many times the same questions are going to come up everywhere. Are you getting ready to go back to school? What grade are you going into? What are you doing any like last minute travel plans? When are you going back to school shopping? So many of these questions could be coming up. So I think that it's important to be thinking about even just generally what kind of an overall like action plan could be. So I think yes, it's important to create individual action plans, but then also you'll start to notice that many of them have very similar types of general themes, which I think really make it easier to actually approach anyone because if you, let's say, forget to do an action plan one day, but you've made 3 at your past events, it's that much easier for your child to have more certainty because now they're starting to think about what questions might people ask even without creating one too.
And yeah, no, I love that because it's true. And I find that once you do it, they're doing it in their head, a lot of
Yeah,
these kids.
exactly.
They eventually don't need the visuals. The
Right.
parent, and then they don't even prepare and they're ready for it. Now, life is such that you don't always know the question. Like you said, someone may ask an off the topic question, and then the child, what happens, right? You didn't prepare for that question. Well, I'll tell you what happens. If it's a question that's answerable, which most are, there's nothing wrong with what I call bridging down. So let's say you have a child that's answering verbally. They're able to answer these common questions. They prepared with their action plan. Maybe they're doing interview or assignments or other sort of question answer opportunity with family members, to help kind of get the communication going, as I call it. All of a sudden, a question comes that you're not ready for. There's nothing wrong with a parent to bridge down to maybe now asking a choice. So someone might ask a question like, hey, I think you guys were like, thinking like, something like, I'm just thinking of an example that occurred recently. Hey, last year you traveled somewhere. I'm thinking of traveling this year. Where'd you go? Now, that's not a question that
Mhm.
you would think that somebody would ask you all of a sudden at a family function, because that was last year. But let's say the child is like, or the teen or whomever we're talking about kind of gets that look. Nothing wrong with saying, the parents saying, hey, did we go to, hey, where did we go last year? Did we go to the Grand Canyon, or did we go to Costa Rica? Nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong if a parent in the moment has to answer because the child can't remember, because a lot of times you don't remember what you did yesterday. So
Mhm.
that little reminder is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Or even if it's socially inappropriate to turn to your college age student and give a choice question, just answer for them. It's
Mhm.
okay. In that moment, your child didn't answer, not necessarily because of SM, but they couldn't remember where they went. They went many places last summer. It was an open ended, thought provoking question. So, listeners, we're trying to loosen the rein here. We know that you want your individual that you're working, your child, your teen. I know as an adult, you want to become a confident verbal social communicator, but it takes some time and it takes deep understanding of who you are. Where are you on the bridge in different settings? What are the factors into why your communication is challenging? And what types of supports do you need? And what strategies and interventions are needed? And it becomes part of your life in a way that you don't even think about it after a while. The simple act of frontline and handover takeover is not hard. It's just changing your ways. To
Right.
make progress in anything, you need to change. And then
Yeah.
it becomes more routine. Look, it's difficult sometimes to change your ways, right? But it's how change occurs, and it's how progress occurs.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with everything you say, and I think
I'm
as
glad
we're
you do. I'm glad you
yeah,
do.
and as we're finalizing, I think this episode, our hope is that you're really starting to learn one, an incredible strategy that can go really, really, really far, but also how much preparation is key and how much we can really start to change our children's lives just by the subtlety of adding more of this preparation. It goes so far, and I think that it also gives your child the ability to be on that front line like Dr. E said, but also be that driver in the driver's seat like we always talk about, right? Where they can really start to take those steps and they could feel confident, and they could feel as prepared as possible, and we're putting trust in them, right? And I think that's really important. I think this was a great episode.
It was, but I have two things to say before we
Yeah,
end.
go ahead.
One is the parent that's sitting there listening to this going, but my child does not do well when we prepare a lot. It makes her more anxious. She gets more anxious when we talk a lot about it and we plan it. One, that's the value of therapy, because sometimes it has to be talked about, worked through in treatment. But also, there's ways. I'm thinking about a lot of kids I've worked with where the parents say every time we practice, they get anxious. They don't want to do it. It's a fight. We can't do it. That's where you do it in therapy to prepare. You blame it on us. You send your updates, whatever. But it's also a way that you're driving. So, mom, dad, driving in the car, kids are in the back. You're going to Aunt Sally's house. Matter of factly, no big deal. You just kind of say, hey, we're going. Who do you think's going to be there? Like, sometimes different aunts and uncles are there, or they hear their mom talk to Aunt Sally on the phone and go, who else is going to be there on Saturday when we go? So it's done silently, as I call it, behind the scenes, where the child isn't actively involved, but they're hearing it. What kind of questions? And maybe even directing it to the other sibling in the car if there's another one. What kind of things do you think they're going to ask us? So you're not directing it and preparing with written stuff with your particular child. You're talking about it in general. And in addition, you as a parent can prepare Aunt Sally, Uncle Bill, maybe Grandma Tess, whomever it is, to ask some general common questions at the event. Maybe they've talked about common questions, but now you're telling others to ask these common questions, because that way your child has the opportunity. And whatever stage they're at on the bridge, whether the parent is not, whether it's nonverbal, an intermediary, you give a little extra time, you avoid eye contact, you've shared the About My Child worksheet with them so they know not to focus on the child first, maybe the sibling first. gives the child a chance to process the information. I can go on and on, listeners. Really, give me a question, give me a scenario. I can go on and on about ways to kind of work with your child that works best for them, because what works for one may not necessarily work for another. And that's very important. And we
Mhm.
have to meet them where they're at developmentally and cognitively as well. And just one last thing is that it's important to review these events. What went well? Why did it go well? What didn't go well? Why
Mhm.
did it not go well? What was hard about it? What was easy about it? Talking about this in treatment is really important because it helps them feel confident in sense that like what they were able to do, but we don't want them to feel defeated by what they
Mhm.
couldn't do. But we try to figure out maybe what wasn't done. Was it a loud, large, lots of people environment? Were the parents taking the kids out at a time when the child was just busy and came back from a full day of school or camp and they're tired and it's, come on, we need to do our goals? Were they hungry? Were they not ready for it? You know what I mean? Like there's so
Yeah.
many reasons why something goes well, but so many reasons why it may not. And once you start to realize, look, listen, and learn, then all of a sudden you have more really productive progress good days than not, because you start to read and know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it as a caregiver.
Mhm.
So I think it's very important. We're trying to come at this in so many different angles. I think this was a fabulous podcast. I think it's giving a lot of our listeners lots of things to think about for their child that they're working with, their teen, and in the adult listening to this, and treatment providers listening to this. So thank you, Dr. Jenna.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Have a great day, listeners.